So, welcome to the Happy Mindset. Today's episode is episode number 56, and today's episode title is called Embrace Your Randomness. So, today I'm joined by Deepak Shukla. Deepak is the founder of Pearl Lemon. He's also a TEDx speaker. His TEDx talk talks about how embracing your randomness can become your key strength. On today's episode, we explore that randomness in Deepak's own personal journey. So, we talk about how his first venture into the corporate world went when he took a job with Deloitte. We talk about his venture into the world of rap as well and what he learned from that experience, how he found his love of entrepreneurship through that experience. We talk as well about his travels around the world, and we talk about therapy as well. So Deepak talks openly in the podcast about his experience with therapy and the benefits that it has brought to his life. So I got immense value from talking to Deepak. He's a very pragmatic person. He's also got a lot of wisdom to share. So I hope that it will also have an impact on you as well. So thanks again for listening, and I do hope you enjoy today's episode. Thanks for joining us today, Deepak.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dennis.
So I want to start off, my first question is, who are you, Deepak, and what are you doing in the world today?
Good question. What pays my bills is running a marketing agency. So the agency that I run, we're based in London. The clients that we serve are pretty much spread between the UK and the US. What we offer these clients is search engine optimization services. So if they want to rank on Google for competitive search terms, that's what we would help them with. And that's the service they'd pay us for on an ongoing basis. The second service that the company, Pearl Lemon, pearl like a pearl necklace, lemon, Pearl Lemon. The second thing that we offer these businesses, maybe the same business or a different business, is lead generation services. So what I mean by that is that we book appointments into the calendars of, a business owner who wants to try and, speak to somebody else about doing business together. So that's the other service that we offer. And Dennis, I've been doing that since October 2016. So we're coming up to our third year. It's agency life. Running an agency it's stressful. It's very stressful. The more clients you have, the more bosses that you get effectively. Someone's paying you a couple of £1,000 a month, then they do expect you to be there more often than not to their beck and call. But I enjoy it. It's hard and it's very human because it's a lot about relationships, and relationships I enjoy a lot. I enjoy spending time with people. And as to the wider question, maybe that you're asking as to, who am I? I'm definitely someone who likes to tinker and kind of experiment with the things that I do. I have had different businesses historically. I'm 32 and I, had a very different life at 22. The agency I launched when I was 30. And I guess the best thing to perhaps say is that I spent a lot of my 20s discovering the world, discovering myself, and trying to determine how I could happily spend the time that I have with myself. So, discovering the relationship with myself, I think perhaps more than the outside world. And I definitely I'm happy with the work that I do today. And also, being on podcasts like this and having the opportunity to share little bits of my story and the hope that people can take some practical things from it to add goodness to their own lives.
Mm-hmm. So where did it start for you, Deepak? Like when you're in your early 20s, when you're coming into the corporate space, when you left university, like what were you thinking then, and like what was going through your head then? What did it look like?
Yeah, I had a lot of short-term thinking. I knew when I left Deloitte. No, let's go back a step. In 2008, when I walked out of Warwick University as an English literature graduate, I had a couple of job offers, one which I ultimately took, which was for Deloitte. And I was really just thinking about, right, I've got a year before I start work. How shall I spend my time? So that ultimately resulted in me heading off to South America to backpack for several months, getting jobs to pay for that backpacking. I worked as a admin assistant at a secondary school. I worked in an office in admin at a college. I worked at reception, I think, at one of the NHS trusts. I did a whole range of jobs to save some money, to combine it with some of the money that Deloitte gave me as a golden handshake, they call it. Before you work with us, you can take an interest-free loan. And I took those things and bundled them together to off and travel. And I think that my 20s were really just thinking about maybe what's in front of me for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And oh God, Dennis, I enjoyed it, right? You know, there was turbulence, no doubt, leaving university, not knowing what I wanted to do, starting a job in advertising, leaving that job because I thought, oh, this is not me. Going to Deloitte because I thought, oh, these guys pay 10 grand more. Brilliant. I'm clearly going to be happy. Getting there and realize, well, you know what? The money ain't enough because I hate what I do. And leaving that behind and deciding, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a rapper because I've rapped. I like to rap and I can build a career being a rapper. Sure. You know, going on that journey, discovering that as with everything in life, things are both easier and harder than they seem. And I ultimately, you know, went through a lot of my 20s, I think, traveling, going abroad, and figuring out one key component of it, I guess, that helped me, you know, make some decisions, which was, you know, as you asked me, like about, you know, before we got on, about, you know, what has helped fuel my travels, my journey, living abroad and leaving behind a corporate life at 22, was figuring out how to make enough money to get by, to be a little bit of a master of my own time by earning enough to have the freedom of time to make intentional choices, to decide that, oh, you know what, I'm going to go and live in Malaga in Spain. Oh, you know what, I'm going to start a tutoring agency teaching kids, and then I'm going to get some tutors. Oh, you know what, I'm going to try and launch a tech company and raise some money. And it sounds weird and wonderful, and large parts of it were. It was also scary. I didn't have mentorship. I didn't have a set structure. So what it did mean was I was just making things up as I went along. And if I'm being honest, it took me probably about 7 years and 500 hours of therapy to get comfortable emotionally with that approach.
Yeah. It's funny actually today I just saw a video about the brain likes routine. So that's what you were living. You were living outside a routine for a while. How did you end up in therapy?
I was running my recording studio and I got into a relationship with a singer who came to my studio, and it turned out that there were issues between us. She was not the only singer who came to my studio, but she'd been treated badly by men that she'd been with before. So there was insecurity on her part at the fact that it was great that she was a singer and I was a rapper. And it sounds a bit Hollywood, but practically underneath that, I had other musicians who were coming who were also singers. That led to issues within our relationship. She became physically violent towards me, and I was, I was in good shape. I was weight training. I think I was even boxing for a while at that time, and just training, like with a trainer, not fighting as such, or amateur fighting. And I was in this physically abusive relationship, and I was embarrassed to tell anybody that anything was going on. And this was happening for several months, and I became emotionally dependent upon her kind of approval, and that led me down a dark path, which ultimately impacted the studio and the success of the business that I was trying to build. It impacted my emotional well-being, and our relationship disintegrated, and things came to a head one evening when she punched me, and the inside of my lip started bleeding. This had happened several times, different forms of violence. Once she hit me with a vinyl across the side of my head. Another time, I think she punched me hard in the chest. And this time, instinctually, I slapped her back, and then her lip started bleeding. And then she threatened to call the police. And I immediately called my brother because I was at her place. I didn't have a car. I wasn't driving. He came and picked me up, I think at 1 or 2 a.m. It was an hour drive across London for him to get me. And it marked a big turning point, because then my brother caught wind of everything that was happening. He said that I must leave this relationship, that there were so many things that were wrong with it. And that led me to trying to look for help. And I wasn't sure who to really turn to. My brother, great, bless him, took a very practical approach towards it. Okay, so don't see her now. If you're going to get in trouble if you hit her. It doesn't matter if she's hit you several times. It's not how the law will see it. Make sure you don't contact her. Do this, do that. But it didn't really give me the answer to my emotional turbulence. And yeah, I didn't know who to talk with it about. I'm from an Indian family. My parents had an arranged marriage at 11 and 13, and they were born into a life of pragmatism. This is your path. This is what you do. You come to the UK. We're going to work. Kids go to school. Kids study. Kids get a degree. Kids get a good job. And it's a very kind of rigid structure. It didn't give me the emotional vocabulary, I think, and the emotional perseverance to cope with things that were thrown at me. So I ended up at that stage calling the Samaritans, because I didn't know who else to talk to. And that, as I discovered, marked a huge turning point for me and my journey into the world of therapy.
What did you get from the Samaritans that you weren't getting from the pragmatic approach?
Intentional listening. I think that what's interesting is that with the right steering, a lot of us, maybe all of us, have the answers to our own problems. And steering is about steering our own inner dialogue as opposed to leading us to a direct solution. I think that, when men, bless us, we're such practical creatures, that you talk to your mate down the pub about, you know what, I'm having an argument with my missus. They were like, chin up, mate, don't worry. Just give us some space, you'll be fine. Or you'll be like, okay, is it flowers then, is it? Or it's like, oh, mate, don't worry, have another shot. You'll feel right better. And you kind of laugh it off. And it is funny, because we both smile at it, and you can have a good you can have a good kind of crack with your mates. But then, at the end of it, you're like, well, you know what? I still feel shit. I'm drinking because the problem's not gone away. And for whatever reason, you get, guys that are in my life, friends that are so fortunately, less complex creatures than I am. And they seem to just be steady Eddie, as I call them, and to be fine and to shrug it all off. And they don't have a desire nor wish to have a conversation of any emotional depth. And you see that seems to work for them, maybe, or who knows, right? Everybody's different. And I think that going onto the phone and talking for 45 minutes to someone, a little bit like being on a podcast, I guess. It's ironic we talk about it now, but someone who's intentionally listening, who cares about your situation, who's just there to not pass judgment. I don't think that there's many people that get that opportunity in their day-to-day life to have that kind of space to play out what's on their mind. And that's huge, I think, in the sands of time for things that have helped me.
Yeah, I think the non-judgment is key. It's like somebody just listening with intention. It's not just like listening and not paying attention, because you can actually feel that. I didn't really realize that before, that you can actually sense whether somebody's listening to you or not.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and you can also sense whether they're judging you or not. You won't know what kind of thoughts are going through their head, but you can sense it. But yeah, so what did that give you then? Just that kind of sense that somebody listened to you and you were able to actually speak out your honest thoughts.
It's given me an anchor, like my own internal anchor. I think that that was for many, for me, that was a big problem. That a lot of my strength I drew from external resources, from someone thinking this about me, from me thinking that I need to do this so that person will think that about me, from getting kind of continual positive reinforcement because I had an internal vessel or jug that needed to be filled that I wasn't filling for myself. And it almost being like, you know, a bucket with holes in it, and that being something that I carried with me. And what going into therapy attempted to do for me, and don't get me wrong, for anyone who's listening, who's considering it, it's a journey. You don't see one therapist and then come out fixed. I also had that preconception when I went into therapy. I was like, great, give me the solution. Give me the 5-step mental mindset strategy and I will execute it. And then within 6 weeks, I'll be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I definitely went in with that hope. You know, I was like, oh, I get that it doesn't work like that, but give me the quick fix anyway. It's like I know that you can't hack it, but I'm gonna hack it. Give me the hack, and I'm gonna be okay. And you know that turns out to be, you know, complete bullshit basically, because you try it and you discover it doesn't work, and you try. And I think that, you know, it's why, or it's what I mean when I say it's taken years. And the one thing that, in a weird way, Dennis has been a great, perhaps maturer, or something that's helped me to, you know, see into this space with perhaps a bit more depth than the average 32-year-old has, who's, you know, and I bless them. I love it. I love everybody. But I've got friends who are at the pub with me and this stuff. Just like, you know, they don't think about this stuff. It's because I had both the pleasure and the pain of time. I had, through my 20s, figured out how to make maybe £3,000 to £5,000 a month, working 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week. And it sounds fantastic, but I didn't, as you asked me, want to be an entrepreneur then. My businesses were born really of pragmatism. I started a studio because I wanted to be a rapper. I started a tutoring agency because I needed to make some money and I thought I'd have a go at being a private tutor. I wasn't passionate enough to continue those businesses. They didn't fail because I failed as a business, you know, as a business owner. They failed because life things came up. I got bored, or I wasn't passionate enough to continue. And that meant that I had this time on my hands. In an ordinary day, when I was living in Amsterdam, when I was living in Lisbon, I went to Tbilisi in Georgia, I was living in Rio, I didn't know what to do with my time. And that screwed me up a lot in terms of my ability to be at ease with myself, because I just lived inside my head a lot of the time. I didn't want to hang out with the digital nomads in the co-working spaces, ordinary people. I say ordinary people, and that's so derogatory. People that had a life of routine, I didn't see them anyway because they were at work. And then where was my space? The backpackers? No, I wasn't backpacking. I'd done my backpacking when I was 18 years old. I'd stayed in hostels. I did it when I was 20. I went interrailing. I did it when I was 21, when I told you I went to South America for 3 months. I'd kind of been through that, spent a good year and a bit traveling. So then what I was left with was like, well, I don't know what I want. And that led me into a ton of therapy to try and figure it out. And that's where I did have some room to really explore what was happening internally.
Mm. So what changed then? Like you mentioned there, you had a lot of time. You, on paper, look like a success. You're a digital nomad earning 5 to 10 grand a month or whatever. You had all this time, you didn't know what to do with yourself. So what changed once you went to therapy and you started getting more comfortable with yourself in that
Yeah.
time?
And exactly right, dude. You know, people were like, Deepak, you're living in, like, I was living in Rio. I was fighting Muay Thai. I had my first fight. It's on YouTube. That I was getting training with professional fighters. I had money in the bank, and people were like, whoa, Dennis, I spent like probably an hour a day crying at some stage. I was depressed. I was trying to fill holes in my life. I come out again of, I think, a relationship at that time hadn't worked out, and similar issues as had my first relationship. The relationship I had with the singer, they continue to manifest in new relationships to different degrees or different colors of the same issue. And I think that I so you're definitely right that, you know, on paper it sounds great, in practice it wasn't. And what I began to get from therapy was to discover a couple of things. So the type of therapy that did work for me in the end was cognitive behavioral therapy. So CBT worked really well because it looked at causation, it looked at issues. So there was a huge practical element to it that kind of stuck that spoke to me. So that was one thing that was big. And then that it was also the first. It was also something that was that I was actively engaged in over a significant period of time. The other therapies I perhaps stopped. I tried kind of person-centered therapy. I tried relationship counseling, I think, where there were us in a group and doing a round robin type stuff. And I did psychodynamic. I tried different bits and pieces. And then I was also trying like a life coach. Okay, Deepak, what are we going to work on this week? You know, this type of stuff. Cognitive behavioral therapy was the one thing that changed everything for me. I was still, I was, and I still am, as I need to be running an agency, very, very pragmatic and very practical. And there were elements of that that spoke to me. And the philosophy was, you know, let's just say there's 7 mindset tips that you can use to try and solve the fear of public speaking that someone has. What I liked about the approach that cognitive behavioral therapy gave me was, it was like, try this approach and try this approach consistently and see if it helps. That approach doesn't work, switch to this approach, switch to that approach. So it gave me that nuanced strategy that it was like, you know what, a lot of these things will not work for you, but we need to do proper testing to see what is it that, you know, really works in your scenario. And that was different. That led me to beginning to feel like I was enough for myself, to make powerful decisions, to, instead of saying, oh, I feel so crap, I feel so lonely, I feel, you know, life is screwed up, to repeating to myself, dude, life is good. You can't, and consistently sticking to it even when I felt crap, and understanding that, you know, how you feel and what you say don't need to be in alignment when you're unhappy, but one has to lead the other. And in those moments, you need to just choose which thought you're going to occupy your mind with. And for me, working on things like that and trying to test the data and track it and realize that, you know what, life feels crap today, but if you compare to how often you felt crap 3 months ago, you feel 10% less crap now. And that was huge because I didn't really have that sense of tracking. And I began to realize that, deeps, in the moment it feels like you're back where you started, but actually no, the problems manifest themselves not like 5 times a day anymore. Now it's like 3 times a day on average. You still have days where it's like 10 times and you're like, what the hell? But on average, you're getting better. And that gave me a lot of reassurance that, you know what, this is working. And that fueled the fire. Seeing those good results made me work at it even harder, and then I'd slowly start getting better results. And, you know, I think that there's definitely, you know, still things that I struggle with, but giving that backbone it gave me has helped me with everything else I do in my life. And, you know, people might be like, what does it practically mean? I'm with the woman that I've chased and I love, and, you know, we've been together 6 years now. That was the same woman that, you know, didn't work out with initially. It was the reason that I kind of went around the world. I make more money now as a business owner than I've ever made, and I've got better relationships and friendships, and I'm able now to travel the world consistently. I'm away twice a month, every month. I'm in Italy and Spain next week. Last week I was in Luxembourg. The week before I was in Prague. And then I've been away a lot, and it's given me so much more emotional resoluteness to approach life in a much more balanced way. So it's changed my life. It's changed my life financially. emotionally, physically. You know, I'm going away to Poland next month to do an ultra marathon. I'm going to be running 82 kilometers. I'm definitely the best version of myself. And that has come from my ability to solve my emotional problems. It didn't come from the practical tools that I gained along the way. It was the feeling that I have about myself that's helped me change the way that I approach my life.
Well, the feeling that you have about yourself. Would you say you would have shifted more from like external validation to internal validation? I feel like I know from my own experience, when I've been chasing things, it's been because I believe that certain thing would give me a sense of validation. And it would because my belief is so strong for a while until I realized actually I still feel the same way as it did before. Like,
Yeah.
how would you, because like when you're describing it there, it seems like you got the same life externally as you had before. Like, what's the shift in actual feeling, and like, what is life? Does life look different to you? You tend to
Yeah.
focus on different things now compared to back before all this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I still have the same variety of emotions. This is one of the things I think is important. I have days where I'm like, oh my God, I should be doing this. I say days, I have moments. I think that all of us can and we regularly do experience a full range of human emotions: pity, anger, despair, hate, self-loathing, love, euphoria, grief, despair, frustration, irritation. Like, I have all of those feelings. I definitely have all of them. The difference now is the way that I perceive them. And I've been able to separate that feeling from myself. And I recognize that's been probably the biggest change. The way that I feel is not who I am. And because of that, I allow the negative feelings to just pass over me, and I allow them to come, wash over me, and then to leave me. And that has been so powerful because it's not added any jet fuel to potential fires. And it's helped me recognize that this is just part of the human experience. And I think that what's different is that that's helped me become a bit more stable emotionally, and I still experience swings, but the swings don't affect me like they used to, because I recognize it that it's a swing and it's not my state of being. It's a momentary state of being, and it too shall pass.
I get you. So would it be fair to say you're not chasing emotions now unconsciously, as in like I know from my experience, I guess the problem was I was chasing happiness. It would have been the I'll be happy when loop that I've been caught in for years. So
Yeah.
that was like, and the other thing for me was like, it was actually, it's very difficult to accept the negative emotions. Like before, when I wasn't aware of this stuff, I would have been like, I'm not an angry person, or I'm not this or that. So I would overcompensate. Was there any emotions that you were denying in yourself that you found that you accepted and you got some freedom from?
Yeah. So the emotions that I was denying in myself was that I am worthy of being loved. Definitely was a big one. I That led me to being a lot of chasing in a relationship, in my intimate relationships with friends, as well as like my romantic relationship. How that manifested was me being more needy, and needy practically meant that I maybe would message more, I would organize more, I would chase more, I would be more subject to my emotions and get angry. How that changed was I began to message less, to be less needy, or to recognize that I had needs and to expect that they should be met. And where they weren't met, say, this isn't a relationship that fulfills my needs. So we need to either we need to find an equilibrium, or we need to not be together. And that was hugely powerful. That was huge in that, you know what, Deepak, don't try and change your needs, accept they're your needs. And if someone loves you, they can buy into them, but don't chase them if you're trying to make them something that you're not. Be prepared to walk away. And in being able to prepare, so let's just say, to take it out practically, let's just say you call someone 10 times a day, and you're like, I need regular and frequent contact with you because that's the kind of person I am. And you know, the devil's advocate could say, well, yeah, but calling someone 10 times a day is not normal, right? One, well, how do you know that? Normal is relative. So don't make a sweeping generalization and then say that calling 10 times a day isn't normal. That would be something that I would fall foul of. And I'd be like, oh yeah, it's not normal. I need to change, man. And that was a big thing that took me years to understand the nuance there. It's huge. And me realizing, Deepak, if calling 10 times a day is normal for you, then find someone who fucking likes calling 10 times a day. Number one. Number two, in being able to walk away from someone who didn't like that, you discover that actually you don't need to call someone 10 times a day. Because if you're powerful enough to walk away from a relationship, you develop your own internal self-love that actually you don't need that level of frequency. So it's a really weird thing that in accepting it, that that's who you are and that's what you want, and being able to try and walk away from something that doesn't fulfill that, you, in the process of trying to walk away, build your own self-love, because you think I am worthy enough to have my demands met, of to be given the love that my heart demands. And in the process of doing that, I found I developed some stability. So then a lot of those things changed, and I found that I didn't need some of those things that I perceived I did. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. Like the sweeping generalizations used to fuck me over too. Like what actually helped me was I became more aware of my language, so I cop on to the fact whenever I'd say something like it'd be key. Like whenever I say, "Doesn't everybody do that?" or "That's not normal," that's a key that I'm making a sweeping generalization, because there is no normal. It's a
Yeah.
figment of the imagination, collective imagination. So that makes complete sense. When I started becoming more aware of that, again, even something as simple as learning a new skill, like saying I'm not a language person, therefore I never try it. And if I do try it, I'll give up when it gets difficult, because every skill is difficult.
Yeah. Exactly. And it was huge when I began to realize these things, that there's no normal is relative. Some couples call 10 times a day, some couples call once a week, and then it's like the other extreme. What, you talk once a week? What? And then you're like, but you know what, couples like that, they exist and they're happy, and happy is very relative. Happy for some couples will be making love twice a year and seeing each other. I know, I discovered successful partners who've lived in different houses for 50. I had an employee, and her mum and her dad had lived in separate houses for 10 years. And I was like, how does that work? She's like, they're happy. They found that this is the balance that works for them. He visits and then he leaves. And then I've discovered I've got another friend, and she's pregnant with his kid, and they don't live in the same house. But they've been together years, and it works for them, and they're happy. And I'm like, this whole normal thing completely screwed me up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are two good questions though. It's like, am I happy? Does it feel right? Does it feel healthy? There are the
Yeah,
questions to ask, like, and that comes from being in tune with yourself. If you're not in tune with yourself, you're not going to ask those questions, and you're going to believe what society tells you is normal, or whatever you've picked up on, your own interpretation of what the world's saying to you. And
exactly.
that's cool. So so then like practically, like how did your life evolve from that when you went through that period of therapy and like you went out the other side? What were the actual steps between, were you digital nomad around then?
Yeah,
How you got your consultancy? Was there a few steps between that, or?
absolutely. So in terms of the timeline, in terms of the timeline, October 2016 was when I started the agency. But let's go back to August 2016. I turned 30 in August 2016. Just under 3 years ago, I turned 30. At that time, I had made or spent the most part of my 20s earning money through the tutoring agency, which I built up to, at its zenith, at its best point, maybe 10 to 12,000 pounds a month. And as I closed that business down, how did I close it down? I turned off my mobile phone, I changed phone numbers, and the business died overnight. I then made a career of being a consultant, freelancing, basically either tuition or helping people write cover letters for universities, for MBA programs, for career, for jobs, as well as helping or writing people's applications in collaboration with them. So, the applications for career jobs, describe a time when you, what about this, etc. And that did well enough that I was able to survive. In that I'd make maybe £1,000 to £3,000 per month doing some odd jobs. And then I was living off savings that I generated from the tutoring business. So at the time that I shut the mobile phone off, I think I generated maybe 28,000 pounds in cash in my account. And I thought, fuck it. I don't care about this business. I'm unhappy. I want to get out of here. I live in a shithole in London. Let's leave. And I left. And the business, I say that I shut it off. The business petered out is what happened. So I had spent large parts of ignoring some customers, but the good people I kept up with, and then it slowly faded as I didn't do any new business work, and I kind of stopped after a while of partying. And things came to a head because I followed this route from probably age 26 to 20 to 29, 30. Things came, and you know, I tried to launch a tech startup. I tried this, I tried that, and in parallel, the way that I was funding my life was through the tutoring agency and or the freelancing, and the time frames are a bit mixed up, but that was probably from 25 to 30, more or less. What happened, Dennis, when I turned 30 was that I was in Amsterdam at the age of 27 and a half, 28. I applied to the British Army. Again, it was a random thing. I was just like, let me try and do this. Let me apply to the SAS. So I applied to the SAS. I dropped everything else I was doing. Still had savings I was living on. And yeah, at 30, really what happened was I had a bit of a breakdown. I was crying in Amsterdam when I was 30 for my 30th birthday or around that. And I was alone. I was by myself. And, you know, I come from a good family. I come from a happy family. No kind of broken home stuff. But internally within me, something probably, you know, wasn't 2 plus 2 wasn't equaling 4. And I, at that point, thought enough's enough. I'm 30. I want to go home to London. I want to go back to my mum's place and I want to build something. And I want to build something that I care about. I guess I had a real legacy moment when I turned 30, meaning that I want to do something that I'm going to stick with. Or I want to do something that I can be proud of. You notice that I talked about a studio. I talked about my tutoring agency. The only name I've mentioned is Pearl Lemon because I'm proud of what I built. The other stuff, I've not given you a name because it's a reflection of how I feel about it. It was a thing. It was an object. It was an interesting thing that I built, but it isn't, you know, something that I associate my legacy with. I associate it as me trying to learn to ride a bicycle. So then I can get on the real bike that's going to, you know, take me through life, which Pearl Lemon could well be. And I'm proud of it. And that changed a lot of things, I think, for me, that feeling that I want to build something or do something that I can proudly tell people is mine. And this is my path. This is my journey. And that led me back to London and to starting this business.
So yeah, so like that was the feeling. Like, what were the practical things that happened then when you go back to London, just for somebody who's maybe in that feeling right now, but they don't know how to actually go about creating that?
Absolutely. So the practical steps are, I mean, the kind of, you know, short 3-minute process for how you should start a business for me was Google and get a couple of Amazon bestsellers on how to start a business or get the inspiration behind it. So that could be Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Alchemist, The 4-Hour Work Week, The Personal MBA. It's a great book. There's probably way more because I don't keep up with reading. Master the Art of Sales. I've read a lot of sales books. Grant Cardone, The 10X Rule, The Closer's Survival Guide, Sell or Be Sold, Jim Pancero, Jordan Belfort, The Straight Line Theory, then Zig Ziglar. I'm getting through a 17-hour audiobook. Combine those elements with the practicalities of what you're trying to do. I had got a lot of training through the businesses that I'd run historically. So I knew that, well, I want to position myself as a freelancer. I need to go into the SEO space and the marketing space. Great, Deepak, you're comfortable making videos. Get your phone or get your webcam like we've got now, FaceTime, Mac, it's built in. Record a bunch of videos about SEO, record a bunch of videos about marketing, put it onto your YouTube channel. Great. Now you've done that. What else do we need? Maybe we need a Facebook Live page. Okay, great. Maybe you need a website. Figure out how to install a WordPress blog. Okay, great. What about platforms? Maybe there's platforms, you know, like Fiverr or Upwork, or what are the platforms for freelancers? I don't know what the platforms are. Right. Let me just try and list on all of these platforms. It can't be that hard. If you can build a WordPress site, it can't be as hard as building that. Okay, great. And as you can probably hear, the point that I'm trying to demonstrate is be extremely pragmatic and focus on one thing at a time, one problem at a time. It's very easy to get overwhelmed in the idea of, oh, I want to start a 6-figure company, or I want to, whatever it may be, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 figures. Day one is, what do you need? I need a name. Great. What do you need? Maybe I need a logo. Great. And just approaching it one problem at a time. So a little bit like the whole GCSE bite-size thing that we used to get taught in school. That it's like, great, you've got this huge mountain you want to traverse. Just think about the first hill. Get there. And that for me is the key to building anything that you want, is just think about the first step and take that first step, but don't think too long. Your brain will trick you, it will deceive you, and it will try and lead you down all of these different paths. But if you can focus upon that one insight and those types of steps, I think it's much easier to go forward with a lot of direction.
One step at a time. Your path is quite random in a lot of ways. So have you any advice for somebody who is doing different things and they don't feel like they have their path figured out? Like in retrospect for yourself, like did you go through any period where you felt like you're being too random and you should be like focusing on one thing and sticking to it?
Yeah, I think that what you're doing, to be honest with you, Dennis, is beautiful. I wish that I had picked one thing that could stick with me through the years. You're doing this podcast. I sincerely hope that in 5 years, whether you're a hotshot software developer, whether you've left to become an author, whether you are, doing something completely different, that your podcast perhaps remains a centerpiece of what you do. Because I think that everyone needs an anchor and everyone needs to define themselves as something. And that's the one thing that I definitely would change. For those people that do have randomness and wish to, pursue or fix the practicalities of Deepak, that's great. I need to earn an income. I need to make money. I need to make, all of this kind of stuff. I definitely would say all of that's great. I encourage variety, but yeah, do pick one thing. Pick a YouTube channel and build YouTube, or pick a blog and stick to that blog, or pick, it doesn't necessarily even need to be something public. Pick an industry, pick software development, but yeah, definitely pick something, and you can use that to cling to grow, to develop, and to use that as your own anchor that you can fall back upon when the going gets tough. And certainly I don't think, if I'm being honest, running an agency is going to be my legacy, but I'm proud of it, and I do know that it's going to be an anchor from which I'll go out and do other things. And as this conversation has so clearly demonstrated, running an agency is just another path or step on my journey, but it will be something that I'm going to use to anchor myself as I continue to navigate the world.
Brilliant. That's good. That's some good advice. So how would people listening find you online if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, brilliant, guys. So I've got my own version of Quora, if you will, where people can ask me questions. So it's ask.deepakshukla.com. So if you Google my name, you should hopefully find my website, but deepakshukla.com or ask.deepakshukla.com, any of those two, you can find out more about me personally as well as professionally. And I'd love to connect with you on my site.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll include a link in the show notes too for somebody to click into. So do you have any last message you want to share with us before we call this a day?
Go get some therapy, guys. Honestly, I think that if you want to be practical, then don't knock it until you try it. It's going to cost you 500 quid for probably 10 sessions at £50 a pop. You can find a counselor or someone who's decent that will happily accept that, because most therapists aren't in it for a money or a big paycheck. They genuinely have an interest in helping people. And worst case, you'll discover after £500 that, okay, this hasn't, changed me irrevocably, but probably realistic case, it will help you in ways that you can't imagine right now. So I would definitely advocate for 100% of you, go and see a professional, who listens professionally for a living, and you will discover some things that, or perspectives that you don't have right now.
Good message. Great. So thanks for taking the time today, Deepak, and sharing your journey, the ups and downs and the randomness, and where you've gotten to today and the impact you're having in the world. So thanks again for taking your time out.
Oh, Dennis, thank you. I had a lot of fun with you, man.
Cool. So until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.